Brazil has barely recovered from a record recession. Now the country's economic fortunes are waning once again. Q1 GDP comes in at 0.2%. Now, look at that on the chart and you see that it looks rather nasty, and it's a small number, but it is a negative number. And it's the first negative number in 3 years. Economists believe that Brazil could soon be facing yet another recession. Hopes of an era of economic prosperity under Jair Bolsonaro. The new president's election manifesto included promises to turbocharge growth, cut taxes, sign new trade deals, open up the Amazon rainforest. 6 months on, and he's struggling to get those measures through Congress. I'm joined by Alberto Ramos, head of Latin America research at Goldman Sachs. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Richard.
I'm guessing that the negative 0.2 was not a surprise, or that thereabouts was not a surprise. But why? Why is the economy slowing and sinking?
Absolutely, not a surprise. Minus 0.2, 0.2 positive is about the same number. The broader picture is one of economic stagnation. This is the sluggiest, most anemic recovery on record. Why? I mean, this is not new. Brazil has serious structural problems to deliver decent growth. You know, Brazil has recorded very, very weak growth, less than 1% over the last 40 years. And then we had a very nasty recession in 2015, 2016. There was a tremendous decline of the capital stock of the economy because investment spending has collapsed. The unemployment rate is above 12%. The public sector is highly indebted. They have to reduce spending. They cannot boost investment. And there's been a little of disappointment in the slow progress to deliver, tangible signs that the structural reform agenda is moving. So the animal and entrepreneurial spirits in Brazil are still quite depressed, and that explains why we have the sluggish recovery on record.
But hang on, he's only been in office for 6 months.
That's right.
Barely got time to discover where the toilets and the photocopier are in terms of that. But let alone for policy to take place. Is there not an encouraging aspect that the deregulatory policies or the reform policies, structural policies, are slowly being put in place?
Absolutely. I mean, make no mistake about it. This is a very reformist administration. The Minister of Economy has a very, liberal thinking, and there's a number of structural reforms that he wants to implement. But the policy dialogue with Congress has been beset with a lot of friction. There's not been that much progress in delivering the tax reform, the social security reform, measures to open Brazil to trade. Brazil is still extraordinarily close to trade.
How much of this sluggish GDP number is as a result of that? Because this GDP number was baked a year ago.
That's right.
6 months ago.
This is a legacy issue.
This is not his number.
Absolutely. I mean, we had like this very, very nasty recession, 2015, 2016. Since then, you have wasted already 2.5 years. Some of the reforms have not been approved, and it's still pending, and still the fear out there for most domestic agents of medium-term fiscal insolvency. Until they address that issue, I don't think investment spending will pick up, and you're not going to see a vigorous recovery.
How can this be? This economy is resource rich,
absolutely,
like few others. It has phenomenal human capital, and yet you're basically saying it's likely to be mired in mess for years.
Yeah, I mean, look.
It'll muddle through.
Yeah, the muddle through. I mean, the code, the software for growth and development is open source. Like that, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. The perennial structural agenda in Brazil is the same from 10 years ago. Compared with its peers in EM, Brazil, you need to invest more, to save more, to open to trade, and to educate more, and to lower the tax burden.
Is there any evidence that Bolsonaro's less than desirable social policies, his right-wing populist views, his homophobic diatribes, is there any evidence that they are having a negative effect on the investment climate? Companies are basically saying, I'm not going there.
Not necessarily on that. It's certainly like a divisive personality, and and some of these issues are polarizing within society. I think that may affect and impact governability, the capacity of them to establish a fruitful dialogue with Congress to advance the reforms. Whether that is the issue that is handicapping investment, I'm not so sure. But it's certainly an issue that undermines governability.
Alberto, I'm hearing your answers, but I cannot gauge whether you're optimistic or pessimistic. I'm feeling, I'm hearing on the one hand and on the other hand.
That's right, yeah.
But if you had to come down off the fence, where would you be?
I mean, sometimes they say that an optimist is a misinformed pessimist. You know, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. You know, it's not predetermined or preordained, but Brazil cannot grow. I mean, we have a legacy of 40 years of very mediocre growth. So we have to change the model. The old engine of growth never delivered decent growth. So we need to change. We need to reform. We already lost too much time. What happened in Argentina should be a lesson that they need to learn.